Cool. When we were asked to speak to you guys, we really kind of sat down and we thought about some different topics. And the one thing that Mark and I certainly have is just a lot of stories and a lot of experiences. We've really been in the trenches, kind of hand-to-hand combat, trying to shift companies over to Agile. So we really want to take the next 45 minutes or so and share as many experiences as we can. But I think it's first good that we get aligned to what we mean by when we say Agile. So oftentimes Agile is just an umbrella for some specific software methodologies, but for us we really want it to be, as Sheila mentioned earlier, a mindset. And it's really based on values. So the first value is just people. So if you were to go and Google Agile Manifesto, you'll see the different things in the 4 items, interactions and working software over documentation, all that kind of stuff. But what really comes down to, if you distill those values, it comes down to these. One is people. We put our people in a good position to do really good work. Results. So in the Agile Manifesto, it says working software. But what if that working software isn't quite exactly what our customers want or our business wants? So it's really based on customer value. We want to make sure that whatever we're doing is delivering real results. Collaboration. And collaboration cannot be mandated. So we like to think, okay, let's flip a switch on Agile, and now all of a sudden we are all collaborating and working well together. It doesn't work that way. It needs to actually be planned and be embedded into part of the DNA. And a little bit later on, and a couple slides later on, we'll talk about how to actually do that and how we did it at Cars.com. And then lastly, we need to be responsive. So the Agile Manifesto talks about change and being able to adapt to change. But really what it comes down to is we need to be able to be responsive to market conditions. And we need to be able to be responsive when technology changes and when the world itself changes. So we're going to take you on a journey. We're going to start with just an individual's experience with Agile and hopefully take it all the way through a holistic organizational transformation and give you as many insights as we can into what we've experienced. We really want to kind of think of it as business agility. And so we think about Agile, we think about software, but really want to think of a holistic organizational change to agility. And so Mark, take it away.
All right, thanks, Len. All right, so those of you who maybe are not familiar with Agile, we use Scrum, which is one of the processes in Agile. We use a couple other ones, but Scrum is one of the more popular Agile methodologies. It's very simple to teach and to learn. It's very difficult to master. So I'm going to quickly just walk you through in about 60 seconds. There's a product backlog, and the product backlog has small pieces of work that you can do to satisfy a need for a specific customer. This is a prioritized list of things you could consider your requirements.
Nice job.
You can consider your requirements document. What the team does every 2 weeks is what our teams do is every 2 weeks we do a planning cycle. And all we're planning for is the work we need to do for the next 2 weeks. We call it a sprint. And in that sprint, we create what's called the sprint backlog. The sprint backlog has whatever stories we're going to be doing, whatever things we want to do for our customer, and there's just a couple of them, and they've already been prioritized. And then we add all of our tasks to that. We set a goal to that, and then we start to do the work. And it's in a 2-week time box. So the team commits to and says we can get this amount of work done in 2 weeks. Okay. Every day we meet and we just check how things are going. The team talks to each other and has a lot of communication back and forth about what's happening. And then at the end of that 2 weeks, we have a potentially shippable product. So what that means is we do our designs, our development, and our testing in very rapid cycles over that 2-week period. It also means you can't do big things. And we're doing a lot of small things, but they're all based on value, based on the ROI that we can deliver to our customers. So there's a lot of Scrum in 10-minute, Scrum in 5-minute videos on YouTube. If you want to know more about that, I would encourage you to go check that out. So the 3 roles on this team, though, are product owner, the team, which the team is just collectively a role, and then the Scrum Master. I am a Scrum Master. That's my official title. A Scrum Master is a lot of different things. There's some words that describe some of the things that I do. I'm a bulldozer. So in our team meetings, and when the teams come to me and say, something's in my way, I help to kind of move those things out of the way so they can continue to reach the goal or whatever they decided that they're trying to do. As an example of that might be a product owner that is maybe trying to get into the weeds too much. Product owners like to be designers and developers, and we don't want them to do that. We want them to be visionaries and add to that backlog and keep thinking about what the customer wants. We want the product owner thinking about the customer. When they're not doing that, I need to be a shepherd. I need to say, okay, come on, back over into the customer land, and we try to move them along so that they are doing the right roles. This is still new to most of our teams, so one of the things that we do as a Scrum Master is we continue to teach our teams and the organization on how to do things better. Servant leader, I think, is one of the most rewarding things for me. Robert Greenleaf, in his book, The Servant Leadership, he talks about this as being able to recognize individuals and the needs of those specific individuals, and then coming up with ways to go ahead and make sure you satisfy the needs of those individuals. So as a Scrum Master, it sounds a little touchy-feely, but it really is watching your team, watching the organization, and finding out not just technically, we need to do these tasks and get these things done, but what do they really need? What's happening in their family life? Is everything okay? We're doing a lot of those types of questioning with our teams and just recognizing that. And then finally, we are the guardian, which I don't really like that word too much, but we do are the guardian of quality and performance. We're responsible for making sure that our teams are following in the Agile values, some of the values that Lynn talked about, and making sure that we're continuously improving. One of the ways we do that is through retrospectives. And we can do some creative things. I always try to change up my retrospectives. A little shout out to my third grade art teacher here. This is a pirate ship, for those of you who can't see it way in the back. And what I've got here is a retrospective. The great thing about this pirate ship and what we did with this retrospective is I had all of my team, all 7 or 8 people, sitting down at a table, and every one of them was able to get their voice heard about what was going on for the last 2 weeks. And what we use this for is to examine the how. How are we doing things? How can we do things better? This is one of the ways we use for continuous improvement. So let me explain here. Over here you've got choppy waters. So in PMI terms, that might be our risks. What's coming up? And some new things came up while we were going through this. So like, oh yeah, we're going to be doing an environment refresh. So we said, oh, let's put that over here. So someone wrote environment refresh and put that over in choppy waters. Some things slowed us down for the last 2 weeks. So we weren't able to get everything done. So some people wrote out some anchors, and they said these anchors were the things that were slowing us down. There's a shark here in the water, so that could be a product owner. Someone wrote some things about there for that. They use this analogy for a bunch of different things. We also like to talk about gratitudes. So we added it up in the top here, and the wind in our sails. These are things that really help move us along. We did a great job. We had good teamwork. The communication has improved. Those things that we were working on, yeah, they're getting better. And then finally, up on the far right-hand side, you see that little moon over there. We use that for visionary things, for things that we wanted to think about. Why don't we look at transforming this part of our app into something different? So in 1 hour, I was able to get 8 people to talk about risks and talk about things that are slowing us down, gratitudes and things that are making us better, and visionary things with fun activity. The team loved this, and it was all interactive. All I did was facilitate it. The team had this amazing discussion, and we do this in multiple different ways. There's plenty of ways to do retrospectives. This is one, and it's a powerful, powerful tool and a really amazing thing in Agile, where we try to go back and see how we are doing. About every 2 weeks, at the end of every one of those sprints, we do an exercise similar to this, but we make it different so it's fun and interesting. I think this is a great tool, and you can use this with any of your teams. You can pull something out like this and do it at any time. All right, so I am a Scrum Master. 3 years ago, if we can step back, I became a Scrum Master, which was really weird, because I was a project manager, and then the next day I'm a Scrum Master. And my friends were like, Scrum Master, what is a Scrum Master? They said, do you have Scrum minions? Are you out there doing stuff? And it wasn't that. I was no longer actually in charge, and there were a couple things that I didn't, I went through all the training, and we had specific things that we learned. We did some simulations, we did a lot of exercises, but I was not prepared for a couple of things. And these were the things that really kind of came and bit me when I started as a Scrum Master. First is the speed of Scrum and the Scrum flow. Okay? Second is Agile communication and how that's different. And third is the idea and the concept of self-managed teams. So first, the speed of Agile. So, I said we go through this cycle and we do these this 2-week time box. Well, that means you design, develop, and test. Well, design and develop, we can probably do that in 2 weeks, but we had a hard time getting that done and testing. And we still struggle with that a little bit, but what was happening early on is we were actually looking at probably 8 or 9 days of design and develop. We only had these two days for testing, and we were always late. So we started to try to maybe move testing to the next sprint, and that became very not agile. So what we've done is we actually said, okay, let's do fewer stories. Let's get our design and development done in 2 days. That gives us 2 or 3 days for testing, and then we can do another story. What that allows us to do is get things done, but it's taken our teams and our testing a long time to kind of do that mind shift. We're still struggling with that, actually, but the speed of this and then having to do it every 2 weeks, planning every 2 weeks, retrospectives every 2 weeks. It took us a long time to get into a flow. We're doing a lot better now. We're not perfect at it, but it takes a long time. Agile communication, we don't write out all of the requirements. We don't have a big document that is that. We have these little cards called user stories, and we write on there as a customer, I want this done so it'll add value to me, and then we talk about that card. So the communication isn't really written. We don't do a lot of comprehensive documentation. What we do is we talk about it so that everybody from the developer to the business owners to the customer in some cases understands what we're trying to do. And we say, if we do this in 2 weeks, will you get value? The customer says yes. And then we go ahead and we try it. If it doesn't work, we try something else. So it's a much different way to do communication and to talk about things. We've gotten a lot better at this. The teams now know that we talk about things. We don't, it's not like we talk about it and then we go do it 6 months later. We talk about it and we do it the next day or the day after that. So you don't really need to document it as much, but you do need to have that level of communication. And then the last thing is self-managed teams. So teams are, I'm not the project manager anymore. The team is the project manager. So the team decides how they're going to do things. So if a team decides to go rogue, I don't have a lot of control over that. But luckily, yeah, it happens sometimes. And I'm going to give you an example of a specific team. But before we do that, quick story. When I was a project manager, I always wanted to go to the career days at the school. And my boys were growing up, and I always wanted to go, but like, what am I going to say about project management? Let's see, I do a Gantt chart, and I do a risk thing, I do the log, and then we do a change request, and it didn't seem very exciting. But now I'm like, I got it, now I'm a Scrum Master. So I went to the 7th grade career day, and I'm like, Scrum Master, I did the whole simulation. I said, this is how they develop, games, video games. And the kids were excited about it, and they were doing it, and everyone was, happy, they clapped at the end. And I was paired up with another parent, and his job happened to be, I'm the luckiest guy in the world, Scrum Master versus Monster Truck Driver. I kid you not. This guy had videos of him driving his truck with flames, and he had a flame-retardant suit, and at the end, all the kids lined up to get this guy's autograph, and I'm sitting over here in my chair. Again, Scrum Master is more of a servant leader position. It's more of helping move things out of the way. It is very rewarding. It's difficult, but if you can do it well, it's an amazing challenge, and it's really fun to do. All right, so anybody here ever read The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni? It's a really good book. I'd encourage you to look at this, especially if you deal with teams. He talks about the pyramid of kind of what you need to do in order to have a successful team, or to not have a team that fails to reach its potential. In this case, he talks about the first thing you need is trust. So a team that has an absence of trust will not be able to achieve their full results. And then it goes from there. That gives you a fear of conflict, and all the way up to inattentive results. I'm going to give you an example of a specific team that I had called Team Phoenix. And this was a team of 7 developers, very qualified people. They were all really good at what they did. And we started out when we formed. We were one of the original teams, but we were kind of in the run bucket. Run, grow, transform. If you're familiar with the Gartner model, so we didn't have a lot of self-esteem to begin with, and we really were languishing kind of in this artificial harmony zone for a while. So it was good. So we were doing Scrum. We were getting some things done. Some things we weren't getting done. But we were kind of doing Scrum. We were kind of getting things done. Some of those testing issues that I was telling you about earlier, that's kind of where this team was. I didn't recognize it. I was new at this. I wasn't a very good observer, I would say, at the time. And what wound up happening is we were getting along, but then we started to be asked to do more. The team started getting challenged. And instead of the team going up this, up to doing a better job at committing and being accountable, we actually went down. We actually started to spiral. And it was kind of a scary thing because, the team started to fight. We had conflict, and not good conflict, the bad conflict. And eventually we had a total lack of trust. We had a total breakdown. It got to the point where I was doing one-on-ones with these people, and I was saying, what's happening? And they said, you should need to go talk to Dan. So I went and talked to this developer, and I said, what's going on? I said, the team says that you are incapable, or you're not accepting feedback very well. And he said, no, I'm not. That's not true. And I said, did you hear what you just said? I just told you don't accept feedback, and you said, no, you don't. I didn't say that. Okay, so it had gotten to the point where it was such in his head that he could not even begin to add any conflict. It was the most dysfunctional team. I know that Len was involved in some of that, and he came to me afterwards and said, this team has absolutely no trust. This was the scariest moment of my Scrum Master career. We had to start building that up again. So we completely kind of did a blank slate for this team. We built a brand new vision and goals from the ground up again. We did one-on-one coaching. We actually moved one person out and we brought one person in, and it was amazing what started to happen. The teams actually started to achieve results in a very quick manner because we were using this Scrum process. We were using Agile, and after 2 weeks we started getting some results. After 3 weeks we started getting even more results. The team started to get vulnerable and talk about certain things and what was going wrong, and I kid you not, after 6 months of this, the team started to pick up. This became, from the worst team, the absolute best team that we had at Cars.com. They're actually leading right now, one of our big initiatives for our company, and it was because we started again from the ground up and started bringing that up. We really did a coaching intervention with that team. It was really a cry for help, and we had to go in and do that. And some of the things that we used came right out of this book. So this is Coaching Agile Teams by Lisa Atkins. And it's a companion for anybody that's doing any kind of coaching or project management. I would highly recommend you checking this out. Lisa talks about a lot of things, but her big thing is really looking at individuals and interactions. So she's really big on not the process of coaching, but really the psychology of it and talking to people. And the biggest thing that I learned from that and from the coaches that came in for my intervention for this team was the first thing you need to do is listen. And listening is such a underutilized skill. How often do we hear someone talking, or you're talking to your spouse or someone, and immediately something comes to mind, and you can't wait to blurt that other thing out? That's where I am. That's where I live all the time. Okay? What I've tried to learn, and what I've learned from this, and what I've learned from Scrum, is that all I need to do is listen to my teams. If I can listen to my teams, then I know what's going on. And I can start doing things like asking the big questions. Does anybody know what big questions mean? What's the biggest question you can ask? Why? Someone says you have a problem, you say why? What's going on? I used to ask questions like, have you tried this? Have you tried that? That's not a big question, that's a leading question. Or that's a question that says, I want you to try this. Instead I ask, what have you tried? And that's a different question, because then they have to start thinking. They have to start coming up with solutions. I'm not a project manager. I'm not giving you things to do. I'm not telling you these are your tasks. You're a self-managed team. You need to figure those things out. Feedback is another big thing. I just talked a little bit about that. So I don't give answers anymore. If I have to give an answer because they're really stuck, I'll give 3 answers or 5 answers or 10 answers. And that makes a big difference, because then they have to choose. If I choose, then they get that responsibility back to me. And then if it fails, they say, well, Mark said this is how we should do it, so it's his fault. No, here's your choices, you pick a way, and then you go ahead and do it. And finally, acknowledgement. People want to be acknowledged. Think about your teams, think about the quietest voice on your team. If you did an exercise like that retrospective with the pirate ship, you're acknowledging them. Their voice is being heard. They have as much opportunity to present and to talk about things that are going on with the team as anyone else. And you need to be able to acknowledge that. Okay, this is a great book. It's a great tool. I use it all the time. Just checking on my timer. So the last thing I want to leave you with is this Agile Coaching Competency Framework. Okay, this is also from Lisa Atkins, and she has a Agile Coaching Institute. She's very big on teaching people how to coach. I want to quickly walk you through this and tell you how this has changed me. And this model here, actually, when I found this about 1.5 years ago, it really changed the way I do things. So So at the very top here, it says Agile Lean Practitioner. That's who I am. Okay, that's what you do. That could be project manager. That could be any role of a manager or someone that's up in the top there. On the bottom sections here underneath, there's technical, business, and transformational. Those are the skills that I need in order to achieve that role that's at the top. So in order for me to be a Agile practitioner. All right. All right.
Speak loudly.
All right. So in order for me to be an Agile practitioner, I need to be able to have those certain skills so I can go up the chain and do those things. All right. Now the way I do that though is through. Oh, thank you. All right. So the way I do that though is through what I have on the horizontal axis. And this. Right. All right. And this is the part that really changed for me, the mindset. Is sometimes I'm a teacher. Like right now, I'm trying to teach you a little bit about Scrum and about Agile and about what that all means. Okay? And then I might be a mentor. Like if you're a Scrum Master, a junior Scrum Master, I might be mentoring you. That's a different mentality. You have to shift your mind into a different gear in order to do that. Okay? Oh.
Just don't push that.
All right, we're going to try one more time. All right, so teaching and mentoring is one thing. Coaching is a totally different idea. On the teaching side, you're actually giving those skills, you're teaching those skills. On the coaching side, you're actually trying to pull that out of them. You're trying to see what they know and help listen and do the important things on the coaching side to make them a better person, to give them the opportunity to learn it, ask those big questions, and listen. Okay? And then finally, there's the facilitation, which is very big for the Scrum Master. We facilitate a lot of the meetings, but when we're facilitating, we're completely neutral. We're Switzerland. Okay? There's no, telling them exactly how to do certain things. It's really just making sure that the meeting gets done, and I don't have a stake either way in it. Okay? I don't care if you estimate it this way or that way. It's really just making sure that the thing gets done and that the team is healthy, and that we can improve upon it as we go. So I use this all the time. We also use this for our mid-year reviews and our year-end reviews. So what I do is I shade in certain areas. So if I want to work on transformation, I'll go ahead and shade that in. Or if I think I need to, if I'm really strong on coaching, I'll shade that all the way out to the end. But I need to work on facilitating. And I think I'm only about halfway through. So people have used this model in a bunch of different ways, but it's very powerful. When I started to do this mind shift, and even in one conversation, I go from a teacher over to a coach, and then maybe I have to go back over into the teaching mode. I go back and forth. It changed the way I communicate with my teams, and it was a really amazing model for me to use. I'd encourage you to check this out. If you want to go to Agile Coaching Institute, you can do that. And there's also the IC Agile, which is another organization that helps talk about coaching in Agile, and they have a whole bunch of different levels about where you can be in Agile coaching. So that's what I wanted to go over. The last thing, I'm trying to move into transformation, which means I'm going to try to do Agile at a bigger level. My mentor and my friend is here to land me, and he's going to take us through the next part of that.